Please comment where you are watching in the world. The first time my mother met Daniel, she said he looked like a postcard. Clean lines, a face that caught the light. He remembered names, collected details, stored them like charms. He learned my coffee order by day 3, my sister's dog's name by day 5, and by week 2 he'd made me a playlist that threaded my teenage favorites with bands I'd sworn I'd only ever loved ironically. We met on an app. He had a careful profile, 2 friends, a canoe, a black and white bookstore shot. It felt curated, but so does everyone, I told myself. Curation is what passes for honesty online. For a year, he was consistent. Every Sunday morning text at 8:11 a.m., a thrifted bouquet on my doorstep if I'd had a bad week, calendar invites for walks with no phones. We took slow, allegedly healthy steps, video calls, then day dates, then I stayed at his apartment a handful of times. I met his parents twice, lunch at a place where the waiters wore aprons with pencil pockets, and a tight little circle of friends I never saw outside his orbit. The parents were old-fashioned sweet, his father a silver-flecked schoolteacher, his mother one of those women who calls everyone dear and means it. His friends told the same funny stories, once at the apartment, once at the grill behind the building, once on a picnic. There was comfort in repetition, I thought. The kind of friend group that builds a shorthand. There were only 2 things that stuck like fish bones. 1, he'd press me gently about trying trust games in bed. He'd never sulk when I said not yet, just tuck the suggestion away as if he was filing it for future reference. And 2, a painting of a woman in a green dress that hung in different rooms each time I visited, kitchen, hallway, then suddenly in the bedroom. I only noticed because the corner of the canvas had a thin crack that looked like a map of a river delta. I liked that painting, I kept noticing it. He joked about rearranging. It wakes the space up, he said. Then he vanished. Not the ghosting sort of vanish, not immediately. It was more like a staged dimming. A text arrived late. A call bumped. A Monday morning deadline, can I ping you later? Then, the bright blue of our iMessage thread turned to green. The playlist disappeared from his profile. The building concierge, a woman with a crossword laugh, said he'd gone to see family up north. When I knocked a second time, a paper notice from the property manager was taped to the door. Tenancy terminated, key drop box in the lobby. Inside, I could hear the indifferent echo of an emptied room. I hired a private investigator the way you hire a removal firm. The worst part was admitting it was necessary. An online service, polite intake form, money wired, and then a patient man named Simon on the phone, asking for everything. Full name, dates, photos, addresses, any oddities. I gave him too much. I was afraid to give too little. It took 3 weeks. In that time, I did what people do when the present refuses to answer. I excavated the past. I zoomed on photos. I compared timestamps. I noticed small wrongnesses I'd filed as quirks. In one picture at his parents' lunch, the salt cellar was the same as the one in his apartment. Not the same brand, the same scratch on the glass. In a group shot at a friend's birthday, I saw the green dress painting behind a different couch. I told myself he liked consistency. Simon didn't. Your boyfriend's name isn't Daniel, he said. He gave me 2 other names, then a third. He linked me to a court record. Manslaughter. The victim was a woman in her 20s. The words were measured and dirty at once. Asphyxiation, consensual, misadventure. It had happened 6 months before I met him. He'd been charged under the 3rd name, then absconded on bail, then picked up again after a tip, then remanded. The tip was my stomach turning. False identities are common, Simon said. What's uncommon here is the staging. He sent me 3 photos from 3 different women's public blogs. Girls I didn't know with watches like mine, dresses like mine, a tendency to photograph teacups on windowsills. In the background of each was that green dress painting. He'd introduced them to the same parents, the same friends, the same jokes, the same charmed routine. He hadn't just catfished me. He'd built a traveling theater. I went colder when I opened a folder Simon labeled Artifact Anomalies. Inside were screenshots I hadn't taken. A selfie Daniel had texted me from his place, the week we met, with a shelf behind him. On the shelf, a chipped navy mug, a paperback with a sunflower on the spine, a scarf. My mug, my book, my scarf. The selfie was time-stamped 6 weeks before I ever set foot in his apartment. I tore my flat apart. The mug was missing from its habitual spot, a gap in the line. The scarf had been absent so long I'd blamed a laundromat. The book had recently returned, I realized, because the dog-eared page was wrong. I remember a woman in a writing class once saying grief arrives as inventory. It felt like a burglary I'd only now noticed. Someone had been inside my breathing. The letters started 2 days after I learned he was inside a different kind of room. Not from him, from a prison. Different hands, different stamps, different units. C-Block D2 protective custody. The notes were strange, clipped, warm and distant at once, like someone running my conversations through a tone filter. He used my private phrases. He used my ugly little jokes. Every letter ended the way Daniel ended emails, with a lack of punctuation that was his alone. They weren't love letters. They were proofs of life from 100 versions of him. Prisoners sell scripts, Simon said when I told him. They build personas. Your man had one good one. He might have franchised it. I went to see him, which every friend said was an indignity, and which felt like air. The officer at the desk stared at my driver's license, and then at me, and then at the license again. The visitor room was glass and plastic, and a thudding rhythm of voices and guards. When a man was led to my booth, I thought they'd made a mistake. He had Daniel's haircut and a freckle near the ear, and nothing else. The wrong mouth, the wrong slope of shoulders, the wrong way of sitting. He picked up the phone. "Hi, dear," he said, and used a word Daniel had asked me once to choose as a safe word, joking, back when he was still wearing that face. My body tightened like a fist. I kept my voice careful. "You're not him," I said. His smile was Daniel's smile jeweler copied, a perfect fake that cost more than the original. "He rotates units." The guard behind me murmured as if to explain a bus schedule. "They all do. What do you do with a story that went on tour without you?" I tried to cancel it like a subscription. I filed reports. I sent cease and desist letters to the prison, which sent me forms. I moved flats. My new place came with light and clean sheets, strangers for neighbors, different brand of radiators. I left the green of my old curtains behind. The painting arrived on a Tuesday. Wrapped in butcher paper, no return address, the crack in the corner now longer, like a river meeting sea. A note in a hand I recognized as one of the jailhouse letters. It wakes the space up. I propped it against the wall and took a picture and sent it to Simon with my hands shaking. He called immediately, his voice stripped down to function. "We'll handle the package," he said. "Don't touch it again." I slept badly, and when I woke, it had moved. Not far. Just enough that the crack in the corner pointed at the door. I couldn't prove it. I didn't have to. I curled the butcher paper around it and carried it downstairs and left it in the corridor like a thread I'd found and was returning to sender. When I came back up, the salt cellar on my kitchen counter had a scratch I didn't remember. I turned it under the light until the scratch looked like a map of a river delta. Then I put it in the bin and took the bin out and sat on the stoop until the morning's chill burned the inside of my nose. His profile was ridiculous in a way that loops back around to believable. Glacier blue eyes, a jaw that knew geometry, a laugh caught mid-tilt. Commercial/fit model, the bio said, between campaigns. I rolled my eyes, then swiped right because the photos made my mirror feel kinder. He messaged immediately with punctuation that felt like confetti. He liked Korean barbecue. He liked women with opinions. He asked thoughtful questions and answered mine without slipping into the bland script of men who think charm is a coupon for consent. We agreed to meet at a place I'd been wanting to try. Sizzling platters, stainless vents, K-pop on low in the background. He texted 10 minutes before. "Running slightly late. Save me a seat?" I did, because I wanted his face to be real. The booth bench stuck a little to the backs of my thighs. The server brought water and a tray of banchan I poked at to give my hands a task. When the door chimed, I looked up ready to star in the small movie where the man in the pictures walks toward me with that relief smile that means both of us gambled right. The person who stopped at my table was filming. He wasn't the glacial prince. He was shorter than me in my boots, cheeks coarse with a week's beard, shirt clinging damply to his back. He held an old phone vertically and pointed it at my face like a weapon that only harmed reputations. "Look at this," he said to the camera, not to me. "Look how they do it. You see this? She'll only show up if I pretend to be a model. She wouldn't talk to me otherwise." The table grew quiet around me in ripples. My bone marrow went cold and then hot. "Please stop filming," I said, small and formal. "I don't consent." "You didn't consent?" he said, incredulous. His voice went louder without getting brighter. "You think I consent to being invisible? You think I don't have to lie just to be seen?" He angled the screen to capture me in the room, the banchan, the server hovering with the politeness of someone waiting out a storm. He was live. I could see the chat avalanche reflected in the screen, emojis, slurs, drop at. Where is this? She mid. A username typed my first name. Another typed my workplace. Another listed an address I hadn't lived at for years. The viewer count ticked up like a heart monitor in the wrong direction. I pressed my palms flat on the table so they wouldn't shake. Lying to get a date is not a political act, I said. It came out teacher voice, crisp over the faucet noise of the restaurant. It's manipulation. And filming me without consent is harassment. Put your phone down. There was a beat where I could have been a person he listened to, and then the chat howled something about queen behavior, and he made a face like I'd proven their thesis. A woman near the wall called out, "Leave her alone." The server finally stepped in with the managerial tone I love in hospitality workers. "Sir, you need to stop recording or go." He backed away like the room was pushing him, narrating to his audience as he retreated. "This is what I'm talking about. Entitlement. They want to eat for free off lies and then act like victims." He left. The door chimed again. The table breathed. The server asked if I was okay with a steadiness that made me want to hug her. I nodded and put money on the table I hadn't eaten from and walked out into air that felt like it belonged to everyone else. By the time I reached the end of the block, my phone was a riot. A friend texted, "Is this you?" with a link to a live stream clip already clipped by someone who clips things for a living. Comments braided around my face like barbed wire. Some were kind, most were not, and a subset were so specific I knew I'd been doxxed in the time it took the grill smoke to filter my hair. I made it home with the out-of-body focus you get when you're counting steps. I locked my door twice. I turned off my phone and then turned it back on because off didn't feel safer. At 3 a.m., the lobby intercom rattled. I didn't answer. It rattled again, longer, until it became a whine in the building's nervous system. When I opened the door in the morning to fetch a package, a mannequin was propped against the railing. It wore my outfit from the night before, thrifted skirt, black tee, the jacket with the loose seam at the shoulder. The face was a paper printout of a beautiful man's head cut from a photo and taped to the plastic, the edges curling in the dew. A phone was duct taped to its hand, camera lens pointed at my door, red live dot on. My stomach did a slow, hot flip. I pulled the phone free and thumbed at the case and saw the stream title, Aftermath. The comments scrolled. She came out, door number. Send food to this address LOL. I put the phone in a shoebox like it could contaminate the rest of my apartment and went to the sink to breathe. I started a spreadsheet because that's what my brain does when panic needs diapers. Links, timestamps, usernames, screenshots of people asking, "What area is that?" and others answering with too much accuracy. In one thread, a user posted a collage of the model's profile photos with a small rectangle on one, a toe tag corner in the bottom right, the digits barely visible. Another replied with a morgue catalog number and a link to an obituary for a man with those glacier eyes and a face that had never been to my city. The catfish photos weren't stolen from a living man. They were harvested from a dead one. I hired a lawyer whose website promised digital reputation triumph. She was brisk in a way that comforted me. She sent takedowns and affidavits and stern letters. She called the platform, and the platform did platform things. Removed the stream, then allowed a re-upload under commentary, then removed that one, then left a reaction video up that used most of the original. The man emailed a counterclaim the next day from an address with numbers for a name. He alleged I'd harassed him at dinner, that I'd baited him, that I'd doxed him by weaponizing followers. Attached was a clip of me standing abruptly to leave, cut just before he angled his phone into my face. He wanted me to settle and sign a statement admitting I had misrepresented myself by expecting a model to show up when I had no such credentials. My lawyer laughed, sharp as a glass rim. "He's fishing," she said. "Don't bite." I tried to take comfort in her certainty and found I had none left to rent. At night, I'd catch a whiff of something, cooked meat, a deodorant I didn't use, and jump like the scent was a person. A forum someone sent me had a thread titled Field OP, Barbecue Girl. The original post listed my city, the restaurant, the time. The comments were timestamps that matched the lag in the live stream. It read like a gaming chat. "We got entry. We got an angle. Someone grab Airbnb photos near her zip." One posted a screenshot of my parents' street from a decade ago with a red circle around their mailbox. I felt myself shrink until my body was mostly white noise and clenched jaw. Her name was Marina on Hinge. 3 photos, all bright gems and mirror angles that made her look like she lived on almonds and endorphins. We messaged for a week. She wrote like someone who'd been single long enough to have opinions, but not yet bitter. Parks over bars, tea over coffee, not into drama. When we met, she was wearing a baseball cap and oversized sunglasses, even though the sky was mostly cloud. Up close, she looked nothing like the photos. That part, I told myself, was forgivable. Filters are currency. I decided not to be a jerk about it. We sat on a bench under a plane tree in the park. She said she loved Star Wars, then mixed up the captain who says engage. I made a joke to give her an exit, and she took it, pivoting into music, then art, then I just love being outdoors, which was strange given how fast she wanted to sit. I kept it polite. An hour later we walked to the edge of the park, and I said the script line. Nice to meet you. I'll text. I did not text. At home, I flopped on my couch, opened a beer, and texted a friend a summary that made me sound kinder than I felt. My phone buzzed. We should do tomorrow, she wrote. I left it. 5 minutes later. It's okay if you're tired. I can come to yours, and we can just chill in your apartment. The message lit my brain like a flare. I never told her where I lived. How do you know my address? I typed. She sent a winky face. I'm smart, remember? Blue throw on your sofa is cute BTW. I stood up and stared at the blue throw as if it would confirm or deny the text. The curtains were open. I live on the 3rd floor. You couldn't see the couch from the street unless you knew which window was mine and had the right angle. I blocked her number, then blocked her on Hinge. I did not sleep well. At 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a push from my smart lock. Door unlocked. Key. Unknown, then door locked. Key unknown. I have an audit trail. I stared at the time stamp and tasted metal. I changed the codes. I added a cam to the peephole, and when I was screwing it in, the lens caught a glint from the hallway light, and I saw the tiniest pinhole in the old peephole, like someone had swapped it for a two-way lens. The building locksmith, an old guy who says kid to men my age, came by the next afternoon. Management had me cut a backup fob for this floor last week, he said. Said a tenant lost theirs. He showed me the log like it would calm me. The date matched Marina's first message. 2 days later, a new tenant moved in across the hall. Maria on the mailbox, printed neatly. I met her in the corridor, her hair a different color, her sunglasses on though we were under fluorescent hum. The perfume hit before the hello, sweet, powdery, a drugstore floral you could pick out of a crowd. It was the same scent Marina wore in the park. Welcome, I said too bright. Her eyes flicked over my door, down to the handle, up to my face. Thanks, she said. Quiet building? Her voice was slightly deeper, like someone holding down a key. Packages started arriving mis-delivered. My name, her door, her parcels mine. On Tuesday, an envelope slid under my door with no stamp. Photo prints from somewhere low and across, angled through glass. My living room with the blue throw. My kitchen counter with Tuesday's takeout. Me tying my shoes, half-crouched by the hall table. I bought a different colored throw and moved the couch against a different wall. The next morning, green looks better from an unknown number. I filed a report with the landlord. 3 days later I got a nuisance warning with photos of a woman yelling in the corridor, me in frame, hands up, like I was part of it. The complainant was Maria. I asked to see the footage. The building manager said the hallway camera had been offline for maintenance. The timestamp on the photo matched 3:13 a.m. I set a trap. I placed a tiny plant on the sill and took a photo, posted it to my private story, geotag not at home but a cafe across town. That night, another text, cute plant. 10 minutes later, another message from a different number. Stop filming me in the hallway. I wasn't. Someone was performing both sides of a conversation for the file. I started recognizing her in other shapes. A woman with a bob and a denim jacket in the elevator, same perfume. A blonde with a tote bag by the laundry room, same shoes. For a week I wondered if it was one woman with wigs or 2 or 3 sharing clothes and a Target. In the evenings, under my new green throw, I scrolled through tenant forums and found a thread about apartment hunters who move into buildings for a month, create paper trails against a neighbor, then leave when the neighbor gets warned out. It's easier to evict a complaint than a complainer, one comment said. I slept with my phone face down and woke every hour anyway. One night the lock log dinged again. Accepted, management fob, 3:13. The cam caught a sleeve, a sliver of cheek. The still could have been anyone with a wrist bone, but the perfume came under the door like a fog. I flicked on the hall light and watched the peephole brightness shift by a degree, like someone backing away. I said, I'm calling the police, and my voice thinned at the edges. The landlord emailed the next morning. My lease would not be renewed due to ongoing disturbances documented by multiple tenants. I stared across the hall at a door with a new wreath on it and a nameplate that had quietly changed. M. Torres now read Timora. Same font. Same adhesive corner lifting. I moved. You can call that losing. You can call it cutting a wire. I packed the green throw and left the smart lock behind for a deadbolt with a key that bruised my palm if I squeezed too hard. The first night in the new place, I slept on the floor and felt my nervous system deflate like a lung. On day 3, my phone buzzed with a new match. Different app. The profile name was Rena. 3 photos, gyms and mirror angles, and a baseball cap under cloud. Bio, not into drama. Parks over bars. The first message read, "Blue is your color." I wanted the night to be movie good. I'd booked a table at the kind of place with white tablecloths and low lamps, bought a gold bracelet because she'd said she was a sucker for wrists, and ironed a shirt for the first time since interviews were a thing. We'd matched 3 days earlier, Alina, with a smile that made you think of secrets, profile heavy on bookshops and rooftop sunsets. She teased me about the restaurant in the chat, said she'd never been treated, and I let myself enjoy being the guy who treated. 10 minutes before the reservation, she texted, "Running late, lost my bank card, ugh. Could you cover me tonight?" I said of course. When I stepped outside to call the restaurant, a street violinist hit the melancholic part of Something Pretty, and for a second the city felt like a set designed for 2. Then, "I'm so sorry, train delay. 20 minutes. Fine." I walked to the corner ATM for extra cash and a generous tip, my mother's voice in my head about being decent to servers. My phone buzzed as the machine spit 50s. "I'm nearby, but this area feels sketch. Could you meet me further down? Parking lot by the old cinema? We can walk together." I hated the idea of making her walk alone, so I said yes. Chivalry is a dumb word, but I grew up on dumb words. The lot was a rectangle of bad decisions, sodium lights half dead, weeds in the cracks, a van idling where the asphalt dipped. I texted here. She replied, "Wave?" "I can't see you." I waved at nothing. The van's engine coughed, a bottle rolled hollow. My phone buzzed again, a little pop-up I'd never noticed in maps. "Help improve your commute. Verify home location?" The address it suggested was right. I tapped yes without thinking. A voice behind me said, "Nice bracelet." A hand nudged my ribs. Not a gentle nudge. When I turned, the guy had the kind of face that never shows up in dating apps. He wore a hoodie that had been other people's hoodies and a mask that was more an idea than a safeguard. He didn't have to show the gun for me to know it was there. The weight lived in the way he held his shoulder. Another guy stepped out from between 2 cars and completed the terrible feeling of being the smallest thing in a frame. "Wallet phone," the first one said. "And the shiny." His voice was bored and businesslike. He sounded like retail. I heard my own throat fail and tried again. "I don't want any trouble. We'll get the truffle pasta and a bottle of that red you like," he quoted in a falsetto. "And if you wear that black dress again, I'll probably embarrass myself." He smiled under the mask when he saw me understand. "Come on, man. Don't keep her waiting." They had my chat. Not just the broad strokes, the lines I thought were charming because they were specific. I handed over the bracelet case first, like concession could be a tactic. They took cash, the phone, then the rest. The second guy tilted my phone and woke it with my face before I could say the word passcode in my head. He thumbed through screens like it was his phone, and mine was just renting space. "He's verified home," he said to the other one and laughed. I backed up a step. The first guy lowered the gun to a state that wasn't quite lowered. "Don't," he said. "You seem smart. Stay that way." They left me with my keys, because what's a man without a wallet supposed to do? Walk. The van rolled, purred, folded itself into the street like it had a right to be there. I found a couple at the far end of the lot and asked to borrow a phone. I called the police, and then the bank, and then my friend Mark, who moves through the world like problems have hinges. At the station, a detective took the report with the weariness of a person who hears about people like me nightly. "We've had a few of these," she said, tapping notes into a system that looked older than both of us. "Catfish profiles. Redirect to a spot with no eyes." "No eyes. Cameras out," she said, or facing the ground. 2 days later, Mark sent me a municipal PDF he'd found through a blog that FOIA's for fun. A maintenance report showing the cameras on that block, under review the week before, status temporarily offline. He sent a map with a highlighted route from the restaurant to the lot. It traced gaps between lenses, 2 lefts and a right that made no emotional sense until you thought about sight lines. Alina's directions had led me through the city's blind spots like she'd been studying for weeks. The phone company used the word mirrored. Someone had cloned my SIM long enough to read live texts. My carrier rep apologized in sentences that sounded like shrink wrap tearing. "We're seeing more of this lately," she said. "You verified your home?" I said yes, and she made a noise you can only make over a call center headset. "Don't." I changed everything you can change. Numbers, passwords, patterns. The app told me Alina's account had been removed for policy violations. When I clicked through, another profile winked. Same photos, different name, new bio. She liked jazz now. She mentioned a rooftop again. I reported, and the report vanished into the bin where reports go. 3 weeks later, at midnight, a new message from a handle I didn't recognize hit my email. "Missing you, truffle boy." Attached was a photo from behind, me outside the ATM on date night, neck bent, hands in that little prayer people make when they count cash. The angle was close enough that the back of my ear filled the frame. Mark picked apart the file like it was a small bomb. "EXIF says Pixel 5, he said. "Time matches the withdrawal. There's embedded GPS. "That's weird." He squinted, then blew the image up until we were looking at impressionism. "Also weird." The phone's language was set to a custom ROM. He sent me a headline about a precinct where a handful of officers had been suspended for selling plate lookups and location pings. It was the precinct that covers the old cinema. "It doesn't have to be them," he said quickly when he saw my face. "Could be a reseller. Could be nothing." The last message came a week later, again from a new address. No subject. Just a link that, when I tapped it, opened a map with a pulsing blue dot labeled me. The dot was in my stairwell. It moved. 1 floor. Then another. My phone showed no service. I stepped into the hall and listened. The hum of the building was ordinary. Elevator wiring, a refrigerator in 3B, someone's bathroom fan. I stood there holding the dark phone like a talisman that had lost its words, and thought of the pop-up I'd tapped without thinking, verify home. The dot crept to my floor and stilled. I didn't breathe until a delivery guy clattered up from below, bags knocking his knees, and passed me without looking. When I got back inside, I put the gold bracelet box in the freezer. It felt like superstition, but everything else felt like cooperation. I deleted the apps. I told myself I was not interesting enough to be a hobby. I turned my phone off at night and taught my body how to live without the map of myself. Some nights I imagine a van idling just out of the light and a woman's hand hovering over send, thumbs in that ready position, waiting for a man like me to wave at nothing. I was 15, and the internet was a place with velvet curtains. You could pull them shut and be whoever stepped into the room after the lights went down. I called myself Lena. I stole a girl's photo from a blog, soft focus, freckles like stardust, and told a European boy named Matthew that I was 17, then 18, then 19 when the lie needed scaffolding. He said he was 21. He said he lived in Liège. His English was careful and charmingly wrong in the same places every time. We met in a late-night IRC channel with a name like a sigh. He called me Petit Étoile. I called him Captain because he sent me a picture of a ferry and said one day he'd sail it across the ocean. Time zones made us dreamy. When it was 3 a.m. in my parents' house, it was morning where he was, and we lived into the overlap like a secret sidewalk. We swapped digital things, songs, quotes, an image of a snow-covered square that he promised was his bus stop. Eventually, we traded phone calls, scratching through prepaid cards, my whisper under a duvet, his faraway breath caught in transatlantic fuzz. He taught me how to shape French vowels around the edges of my mouth. I taught him my middle name. When he said he would fly to New York to meet Lena, the air thinned. I performed the panic ritual teenagers perform when a lie grows bones. I cried, I promised more, then I built an exit. I told him there had been a car crash. I told him I was in hospital. I told him I didn't remember him. I told him I had lost both legs. I found a stock photo of a hospital bed and held my phone to the screen during a call, so the hiss sounded like machines. Then I made Lena say she wasn't ready to meet a stranger, and I let him sit inside that word until his replies slowed and thinned to nothing. He went quiet, and I grew up. I thought about him like you think about an almost accident on the freeway, a flash of brake lights, and then normal traffic. I was 23 when a link slid past on a message board, a Belgian article about a young man found by the Meuse. The headline used a word that needed no translation. The photograph showed police tape, a wet sky, a cafe window catching a reflection. On the glass, reversed, a hoodie logo I recognized, Camp ESTVIW, my school's summer program, the one I'd worn in a photo he once begged for, just of what you're wearing. I never went to Belgium. I stared long enough that the pixels felt like sand. I decided it couldn't be him. I decided it might be. Then I closed the tab and didn't sleep. The first anniversary email arrived on January 14th, time-stamped at 3:12, the hour I used to whisper to him under blankets. It came to the old address I hadn't used since college, from a throwaway with no name, just a string of numbers. The subject line was our joke, Petit étoile, no clouds tonight. The body was a single line of French he had written once when I said I couldn't sleep. On compte les lampadaires au lieu de moutons. Count the streetlights instead of sheep. I hovered above the trash icon until curiosity made me click View Original. The headers were a riddle, received from, an XQ date that read 10 years earlier, as if the message had been set on a timer and then buried. I printed the page, and the toner stuttered over the date. I told myself it was spam. I told myself to stop being dramatic. Then I tucked the paper under a stack of bills and freaked out quietly in my tidy kitchen. On the second January 14th, I woke to a voicemail. The number was longer than mine, the country code foreign. A male voice spoke in French, without the apology most callers make when they realize they've misdialed. He said our pet names, he laughed under his breath. He called me Lena the way a person says a name to remind himself he knows it. I copied the number into a search bar, and the results were a little field of ghosts. Archived listings, a gazette notice, a photo of a cordoned gate. A cemetery in Liège. The payphone outside had been removed in 2009. My teenage chat logs live on an old hard drive I keep in a shoebox with Tamagotchi guts and friendship bracelets. I mounted the drive and opened the sticky little HTML files that used to be my diary. They've always been a comfort, proof that I was once silly and merciless and in love with the way a person on the other side of the world put words together. The afternoon I opened them after the second anniversary, they were different. No modification date had changed. My OS swore they were last touched years ago, but new lines threaded between old ones like darning. Places I'd typed BRB now had translations he'd sent me, as if he'd found my pauses and filled them with his own. A paragraph I knew ended with "Good night, Captain" had an extra sentence. "Do you dream of walking?" The font matched. The spelling errors matched mine. I clicked away, and then back, and the line was still there like a bruise you don't remember getting. I told my therapist and watched her face arrange itself into kind concern. I told a friend and apologized before I finished because I could hear how it sounded. Then I emailed the journalist whose byline stood under the Belgian article and wrote something polite and strange. "I think I knew a boy in your story a long time ago. Can you tell me if his name was Matthew?" She didn't reply. I emailed again. She answered with the caution people reserve for the unwell. The family requested privacy. She would pass along my details. I thanked her and waited and hated myself for waiting. The sister wrote on a Sunday morning. Her English was quick and clean. She said she remembered his late-night calls. She said he practiced English vowels in the bathroom and made their mother laugh. She asked if we could talk. I flew to Brussels because planes are what people board when they need stories to make sense. The sister met me in a cafe with a window that wore the sky like a sullen lid. She looked like him around the eyes. "He showed us your messages," she said, not angry yet, a fact finder. "He said you had an accident. He said you lost your legs. He cried about not being able to help." When she asked me, gentle like a hand on a bandage, "What color are your new prosthetics?" I almost told her white, because that is the lie I once sent a boy, a stock photo with white plastic where calves should be. "I lied," I said instead. My mouth felt full of glass. "I was a child and I lied and I am so sorry." She stared at her tea, as if it had more to say than I did. "He went to the river on a Tuesday," she said. "My mother says he left a note, but I never saw it. Every year someone calls our landline and doesn't speak. It stops on his day, like a church bell." She lifted her eyes. "We changed the number. The calls still know it." Back home, January hurt more. The third email arrived right on time. "On compte les lampadaires." The raw headers were stranger this time. "Received, from local host," like a message written inside my own walls. The voicemail came an hour later, same pet names, a clip of a song he loved spliced in at the end, clipped exactly where his favorite line used to land. My chat log sprouted another seam. We are not ghosts when we are remembered. A thing he once said when I confessed I printed our emails to keep in a box. I unplugged the hard drive, and the sentence stayed. I cleared my browser cache like a ritual. I sat in the kitchen and waited for my appliances to speak French. I met Jasmine in my inbox the way you meet most angels these days, through a DM with a blue check and a tone that made you feel discovered. She had the kind of face you'd expect to see on a billboard outside LAX. Cheekbones like ledges, an arch of humor at the mouth, eyes that promised mentorship, not competition. Her first message was practical, almost blunt. Your portfolio has potential, but you need range. DM me if you want honest feedback. I'd been posting test shots and small brand collabs for months, grinding through the same white wall poses and discount code captions. She knew the names of the bookers who'd ghosted me, the photographers who could shoot skin without flattening it into plastic, the one stylist in the city who wouldn't put me in someone else's lip gloss. When I asked how she knew so much, she sent a laughing selfie with a stark studio light blooming behind her like a halo. I've been around, she wrote. I remember being where you are. She was generous with introductions. She CC'd me on emails to M and G and K. First initials that made me feel inducted into a quiet circle, and eased me into a language I didn't know I was hungry to learn. She corrected my walk over a grainy video call by telling me to let your bones arrive before your face. She sent me a PDF titled The List, with studios that were safe, studios that were busy, and studios that were no. The studio she marked yes had a single name, Kettering. Kettering was in a quiet building with a freight elevator and a lobby too clean for its rent. The photographer, Michael, tall, kind, with a careful voice, handed me a bottle of water and asked about my references. When I told him Jasmine had sent me, he smiled like a man remembering a fond friend. She has a good eye, he said, and it felt like a blessing. The first shoot was easy, white sheets, soft sweaters, a makeup look that suggested sleep rather than seduction. He paid on time, more than I expected, and emailed a gallery that same night where my skin looked like a promise I could keep. Jasmine sent heart emojis and a list of lingerie brands in Milan that were looking for innocent but confident faces. I can open a door, she wrote, but you have to walk through it. I walked. The second shoot tilted toward playful. Cotton bralettes, knee socks, a lollipop prop I hated but survived. The sets were small, boxes of wardrobe pieces in labeled bins, sheets folded with military corners. The mannequins wore slips pinned to fit. The third shoot was the one that skittered across the floor of my brain like a beetle. The wardrobe bin had tags whose numbers didn't match adult sizes. 10/12ths, 14/16ths. A seam traced down the back of a cardigan where someone had opened and let out the knit. The knee socks were shorter, then folded over to pretend otherwise. When I asked if there were other options, Michael said a client liked the clean lines, and could we do one playful set to cover their brief. He was kind. He was measured. He switched to a different set when I hesitated. He didn't push. He didn't have to. I already wanted to be good. Between shots, my phone buzzed. She's watching, Jasmine wrote. You're killing it. I looked around the empty studio and laughed, a little flattered, a little spooked. When I told Michael, he grinned and pointed at the camera. Jasmine sees everything, he joked. I didn't know how literal that was until much later. It unraveled a year after Milan didn't happen, after a handful of small jobs and one big one that fizzled into we went a different direction. I was making pesto in my dull little kitchen when a link came through from a model forum with 13 exclamation points. Do not shoot with Kettering. The thread was a live wire. A dozen women. Identical story shapes. A mentor. A studio. Innocent turned raunchy. A court docket link. He was arrested for producing and distributing illegal content. Not because we were minors. We weren't, but because the images were graded, cropped, and captioned to be purchased as if we were. The words on the indictment felt like acid, misrepresentation, minor-coded, distribution. There were screenshots of listings with my face and a title under it that made my chest go tight. I clicked through until my skin felt too small. When the police came to take my statement, they asked whether I'd signed any releases. I sent them everything, PDFs, emails, texts. One PDF had my name typed on the signature line, and a timestamp that didn't match the day I'd been in the studio. The IP address geolocated to the same block as Michael's studio. The notary stamp belonged to a woman named Ruth Kettering. The ink on the page wasn't just legal, it was familial. I never signed this, I told the detective, and he nodded with a face that meant both everything and nothing. You consented to being in the room, he said, flat, bureaucratic, tired. The rest is argument. I asked if they'd arrested Jasmine too. He looked at the photo and then at me. Who is this? He asked. They had tried to reverse image search her face and found nothing. I tried too. Eventually, I found a hairline that repeated like wallpaper across 3 different photos, a strand arcing at the same improbable angle in every frame. Her eyes were 2 different eyes in 2 different frames, stitched with a seam so subtle you had to zoom until the pixels blurred to see it. Jasmine wasn't a person. She was a composite. I went back through my messages, which felt like crawling through a house I had loved that had become a crime scene. The night I wore the knee socks, Jasmine's DMs had arrived in rhythm with the camera shutter. I laid the timestamps side by side. Click. You're doing great. Click. Shift your chin. Click. Perfect. Michael could send messages from a foot pedal. He could be the camera and the praise at once. I found the wardrobe bin labels in a photo and zoomed until I could see the ripped-out cotton numbers underneath the size S stickers. Michael was careful, but careful men still leave fingerprints when they touch too many things. The photographs that surfaced later made me want to tear out of my skin. Deep fakes, they said, when I told them that one was wrong. The mole below my left clavicle appeared in one frame, then vanished in the next. My nose rings switched nostrils. Tell us which are real, the prosecutor asked, and my voice went small. In some frames, I couldn't tell. I stared until my eyes watered and the images swam. My body became a coin flip. A week after the story hit local news, I woke to a package on my doormat with my name typed in a font I recognized from the fake contract. Inside was a folder of printed contact sheets bound with twine and a handwritten note on hotel stationery. You signed likeness rights in perpetuity. The signature at the bottom was Ruth's, same neat loop. I drove the folder to the police and sat in the car lot with the engine off until the heat woke a headache behind my eyes. Jasmine's account vanished, then reappeared with a new handle, then vanished again. A different mentor followed me a month later with that same breezy confidence. Your portfolio has potential. The eyelash strand in her photo made the same impossible curve. The last time I went past Kettering, the blinds were down, the freight elevator padlocked, the building directory stripped to metal. I pressed my palm to the cold glass and saw my face double itself, one image real, the other an overlay. I tried to memorize the difference and failed. After the breakup, I started taking pictures of myself like apologies. I knew what angles did for me. Side light, chin down, hair loose enough to blur the acne scars and the hormonal fuzz that returns even when you shave it. I didn't facetune anything grotesque. I used the filters the app handed me like napkins. I told myself everyone curates. I told myself I could be honest later, in person, after I felt safe. He was Alex on the app. Book recommendations that weren't performative, photos that looked prime number real, unposed in a messy kitchen, a crooked smile, a long-armed friend half in frame. He replied to prompts like someone not trying to win. Want to walk? There's a park with decent geese, he wrote, and added a laughing emoji that didn't feel like a trap. I wore sunglasses big enough to be their own personality, and tied my hair forward, so it curtained the features I apologized for. The park smelled like damp bark and old oranges. He waved from a bench in dapple light, exactly the person from the photos, down to the frayed cuff. We did the small talk choreography, work, heat, that tree with the labels. He listened without the stare some men use when they're deciding whether effort is worth the bill. After 25 minutes, I wanted to mess with gravity. Sorry, I said, and took the sunglasses off, swept my hair back. It felt courteous, finally, to be my entire face. His changed. Not all at once, a ripple like heat, then the set of the mouth you give to a sour thing. Oh, he said, almost kindly. Then, without looking me in the eye, you don't look like your pictures. I look like me, I said, hearing the wobble. My pictures are nicer. He nodded, as if I'd confirmed a diagnosis. He put a hand on my wrist like he was preventing harm, and an algorithm clicked into place in his expression. Relief that the script had landed. Girls like you, he said, and the tone emptied the word girls of any tenderness, are why men hate dating apps. You make people believe a lie, and then act wounded when they notice. I tried to stand. His grip tightened. It wasn't theatrical, it was precise. Let's take some real photos, he said. For your profile. So guys know what they're getting. He reached toward my pocket, where my phone lived like a heart. I didn't plan it. My body has its own intelligence. I twisted and drove my elbow back into the soft cartilage under his nose. There was a hushed snap. He let go with a sound that made my stomach cold. Then he grabbed, and I ran. I don't remember the paths, only the small lake turning like a coin and the thud of my sneakers slapping the polite gravel. Behind me, his breath and the clipped syllables of my name. It should have been one syllable. He made it sound like three. I cut toward the exit, past a family whose child said, "Mommy, that lady looks like a cheetah," and stumbled into the public library because it had a sign that said welcome and I needed something declarative. I told the woman at the front desk, and then my voice failed. She pressed a panic button that called the guard and gave me a look that stitched me back together with thread made of "I see you, keep breathing." The police arrived. I described a man who would not look like a mugshot until someone took one. I wrote a statement with a pen that smelled faintly of fruit. When they asked if I wanted to pursue charges, I said yes in a way that made my mouth taste like tinfoil. That night, my phone chimed with a push from the dating app. "Your profile has been flagged for misrepresentation." My stomach did the wobble you get before vomit. I'd just deactivated the account. I opened it and found myself public again, photos in carousel, bio intact except for a new line in small gray, "Profile verification recommended." I hadn't toggled public back on. The login log showed an IP I didn't know. I Googled it and found a cluster of addresses assigned to a corporate VPN for a company I recognized from the news, a content moderation contractor. My skin crawled in a whole new key. A DM slid in from a stranger with a name like a school register. "I know that speech," she wrote. "Same park. Same wrist grab. I elbowed too. He shows the video to anyone who will watch." She sent me a clip hosted on a mirror site that smelled like mildew and adware. Me tonight, cropped to my flinch, spliced with older footage of other women standing abruptly. A caption, "Catfishers exposed." The comments were the internet's usual, scripture quotes, slurs, filters are fraud. At the bottom, a link to a forum where men traded scripts like recipes. I hired a lawyer because adulthood is accidentally learning to pronounce retainer. She was brisk and calm and made phone calls in tones that got things done. She filed privacy complaints and sent demands. The platform responded with apologies, so general they felt like fortune cookies. "We take safety seriously," they said, "and consumers expect authenticity, and we're working on it, which is software for we won't." Alex filed first. A platform forum titled "Deceptive Conduct" with my username highlighted in red. He attached a statement. Subject misrepresented her appearance with manipulative filters, caused emotional distress, and wasted time/money. He requested my account be downranked and flagged across partner apps. The flag propagated like mold. Overnight, I lost access to most verifications in my profile. When I peaked out of masochism, sank to the bottom of every stack. 2 days later, a process server knocked while I was in pajama shorts and an old hoodie and handed me a civil claim for assault. The demand letter offered a settlement, record a video admitting I had catfished and apologize for causing harm, and they'd drop it. My lawyer laughed, short and sharp as a breaking icicle. "No," she said, and filed our response. A week passed like chewing tin. I bought a cheap camera for my peephole and found the lens already swapped for a two-way. I replaced my lock and recognized the same locksmith from stories women whisper to one another. The one who says, "Stay safe, kid," like a benediction. In bed, I scrolled the forum that had my clip pinned and read the script as it was meant to be read. Open with shaming, shift to safety talk, propose real photos, obtain phone, escalate humiliation online. Threads instructed the field op to file complaints first. Pretext, one user wrote, "So if she fights back, the paper trail is on her," and the bile in my body went cold. An HR email arrived from my company's legal team. An online complaint alleges you scammed a user on a dating platform. It read evenly. We're obligated to follow up. The complainant had used an anonymized address with a corporate tone and attached my panicked walk out of frame from the restaurant live stream I'd watched in another woman's story 2 months earlier. It was not me in those, but the algorithm didn't care. My manager, kind anxious, asked if I was okay, not like a boss but like a person. I told him the truth, a version of it, and he nodded. "We'll handle internally," he said, which is how institutions tell you to continue breathing. Another DM from another woman. He messaged me as Bryce last year. Same park. Same line about girls like you. She attached a photo of a business card, cross-platform policy consultant, a title frustrating enough to scream into. He worked where the rules get written and filed his complaint before our date. The IP matched. My lawyer wrote an email to a journalist with a spine made of old court filings. A small piece ran about weaponized moderation and men in the pipeline. The comments were as you'd expect, but one was from a moderator, anonymous, with just enough internal jargon to smell like truth. We've noted multiple bad faith misrepresentation claims originating from one office. It didn't name him. Men like that don't get named until their hobby hurts a man. Eamon insisted on video from the start. Just to prove I'm real, he said, which should have relaxed me but did the opposite. Catfishers hate cameras, that's the lore. He requested a call at golden hour, when even bad faces look painted on good. When he answered, the image filled with a man I would have believed without argument, bookish handsome, a tea mug with a crack, a poster for a 2012 film nobody remembers. He smiled in a way that made your shoulders drop. See, he said, not a vending machine of red flags. We talked about the small things that graft into intimacy, what you cook when you're sad, the worst haircut of your youth. But any time he lifted the phone, the light did not lift with it. The wall behind him stayed the same milky hue. The reflection in a framed print blinked one beat late. His face was right and wrong in a way that felt like déjà vu you could point at. I took a screenshot when he laughed, mouth open, eyes not creasing. I ran it through reverse image search while he was telling a story about a failed camping trip. Buried on a university press page was the same headshot, older wardrobe, different name. Faculty. Archived. I felt the floor inside me tip like a platter. Who are you? I asked, interrupting him. He didn't flinch. The smile held, then reassembled by degrees, like someone working a puppet. That's not me you're seeing, he said, as if he were offering to pay the bill. It's what you're expecting to see. The call dropped. I posted a careful thread the next day. No names, just the pattern and the tell. Watch for light that doesn't move. Watch for reflections that do their own blinking. Replies came in like moths to a window. Same poster, same mug, same rhythm. Some thanked me. Some called me paranoid. Then a different species of reply arrived. Clips of a man delivering a dating safety PSA that had gone minor viral overnight. He warned men about female catfishers, women who weaponize filters and pity. The man in the clips was Eamon, but as I scrolled the stitches and duets, the face shifted. It was my jawline. It was my dimple. It was the soft acne scar by my right temple. Someone had scraped my photos and trained a face on them. He made me warn people about me. I reported everything. Platforms replied with tone-polished shrugs. The PSA vanished and respawned faster than takedowns, plastered across burner accounts like election posters. Unknown users DM'd me with links. Isn't this you? A woman from work messaged, "Hey, my boyfriend just sent me this. Are you okay?" I wrote a paragraph about deepfakes that sounded like I was the liar. 2 days later, my mother called. "Honey," she said, voice trying to be casual, "someone lovely from your school messaged me, Eamon. Asking for that picture from the lake, remember, the one with the lanterns? He said he's making a video for your birthday." I closed my eyes. Our family album is private to family. "Don't send him anything," I said too fast. "It's not him. It's no one." 10 minutes after I hung up, a new account DM'd me with the lake photo, my mother and me with wind in our hair, lanterns like moons, and a caption, "Thanks, Mum." I went scorched earth. New passwords. New emails. A call to a lawyer friend who knows how to talk to platforms in their native rituals. We sent notices. We preserved evidence. I printed the faculty headshot with the dead link like a talisman of the true and taped it by my desk. The inversion began quietly. A subreddit accused me of running a deepfake ring that targeted high-value men, citing my admission that I knew how to spot fakes. A minor blog ran a piece titled, "When Calling Out is a Cover with a Side-by-Side, My Real Face from a Travel Selfie versus the Face in the PSA." Ambiguous, the caption said. Men slid into my DMs with the confidence of deputized sheriffs. A stranger in a grocery line pointed and said, "Aren't you that filter girl?" Like we were in a small town and I'd parked in 2 spots. I tried to ignore the matching requests on the apps, but the newest one stopped me. The profile name was mine. The bio was my bio. The photos were my photos, cropped tighter, paler. The first prompt answer read, "We finally look like what we expect." I reported. The platform thanked me for helping keep the community authentic. A security researcher I'd begged for help screen shared a demonstration. How you stitch a video puppet, how you map light, how a room can be a background and a background can be a room. He replayed the frame from our first call and slowed it until I could watch my reflection lag behind my own blink. The model's not perfect, he said gently, but it's persuasive enough if you want to believe. The journalist I pitched was interested for an afternoon, then his editor killed it. Too technical, not enough B-roll. A nonprofit offered a support group for deepfake victims. I joined and listened to a dozen women say the same two things in different registers. I didn't do this, and no one cares that I didn't. One had lost her job. Another had a daughter whose teacher pulled her aside to discuss online choices. We exchanged checklists and compassion like rationed sugar. A week later, a package arrived, no return address, handwriting careful as a substitute teacher's. Inside, a cheap ring light, a smartphone tripod, and a script titled Authenticity Video. Read slowly. The first line, "Hi, I'm my name, and I fooled a lot of good people." The last, "I'm seeking help." Tucked under the script, a printed still of my mother at the lake, cropped so her hand on my shoulder looked more like a grip than a touch. I sat on the kitchen floor until the tile cooled the heat behind my eyes. Then I set up the tripod, not to confess but to inventory. I recorded myself blinking and moving the lamp and tilting the phone toward and away from the window, showing the light change, proving I was in a room and not a layer. I pinned the video to my profiles with a caption that felt like a small mouth against a hurricane. If you see me say things I wouldn't say, I didn't. The Amen accounts went quiet, then loud again under new handles. I blocked until my thumb hurt. The PSA mutated. Now the face was an old friend from university. She texted me, "Did you get targeted too? What do we do?" I told her what we all tell each other: document, report, warn your family, lock down albums, except that some people want the lie. At 19 I could divide everything I owned into two piles, what I could sell and what I could swallow. Rent was late, the dealer's number was starred, and the only skill I had that paid quickly was pretending to be someone I wasn't. I built her out of borrowed light. A girl with bangs and round glasses from a stock site, soft smile, sweater that said I'm safe. I named her Mira because it sounded like a mirror, and I needed men to see themselves in her. I made a dating profile, then propped it up with a Twitter that retweeted wholesome threads, and an Instagram with 3 plants and a latte art heart. The bio said I lived 2 cities over. Close enough to hope. Far enough to need a ticket. He messaged first. K. His avatar was a sunset. His photos an overgrown backyard and a flannel soft with wash. He wrote like a person standing just outside a party, relieved to find someone else out there. We traded favorite movies and worst teachers and tiny confessions you only hand to strangers. When I told him my car was dead and buses were expensive, he didn't hesitate. "I can help," he said, and $100 blinked into the new Venmo I'd made for Mira T. I told him it didn't arrive, maybe I fat-fingered my handle, and he sent another 100. Panic and relief arrived in the same breath. I bought $40 of powders and paid $60 to the landlord so I could look him in the eye. The second week, I cracked. I didn't tell him he'd been catfished. I told him I was struggling, that I'd messed up with pills, that the money had gone where it shouldn't. He didn't scold. He sent more. He called me kiddo and wrote that he wanted me to get well, that I deserved mornings that didn't start with shaking. He signed his messages with a pet name we invented together, silly and private. I typed "I don't deserve you" and meant it. Then I did what fear teaches, I ran. I deleted the accounts, factory reset the burner, and told the few friends I still had that I was getting clean. I was not. I was just quiet. The letter arrived before the news. Thin paper, neat block handwriting, postmarked 2 towns over from where the headlines would be born. Inside, a single page. "Kiddo, you were the only honest one. You saw me. I wanted you to see me all the way." The pet name. I read it 3 times without understanding the future tense I was holding. 2 days later, my phone lit up with an alert. Push, 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 breaking news from California. A man had walked into a place where people stand in lines and choose things, and made it into a wound. The photo the networks chose was him from years ago, cleaner and younger, but the mouth was the same. His written manifesto, this is what they called it, like a novel with a release date, dripped across the internet in scans and screen grabs. In the comments, I saw my words quoted back at me by strangers, a line I'd sent about mornings, a joke about birds. He'd pasted our chats into drafts months before, seeding us into his myth. It was like finding my handwriting on a wall where I had never stood. I tried to quit. I turned off the phone I'd hidden in a shoebox, the one I only used when I wanted to be unreachable. When I turned it on again a week later, it pinged a cell tower in his city. Not mine. His. No calls, no texts, just the system whispering which antenna it loved. I bought another burner and put the first one in the freezer like superstition could kill signal. Each time I tried to be sober, the devices drew me back toward his geography. A friend who knew a guy told me you could buy location data in bulk for pennies. It's not following, he said. It's subscribing. The face I'd borrowed took on a life. A bolo leaked. Be on the lookout. A composite still with Myra's bangs and glasses attached to a different crime states away. A convenience store robbery. I had no relation to Beyond the Pixels. Someone else had trained an image search on my fake life and used the first match that fit a story. The detective I eventually sat across from slid it into a stack with 2 fingers like it was hot. Happens more than you'd think, he said. The folder he set beside it was fat with printouts, screenshots, avatars, names. Women built the way I had built mine. He collected you all, he said. You made the list when you apologized. I was trying to be decent, I said, which sounded ridiculous given the surrounding nouns. He tapped the page with the letter's postmark. He mailed this on the way, he said. That's not about you being decent. That's about you being audience. I went home and took stock like you do after a flood. I gathered my drugs in a pile and flushed most of them, and kept a little because honesty has to be scaled to the possible. I wrote a letter to his sister because the internet had given me her name. I told her I was sorry for all the unfixable things, that I knew sorry was a sponge on a house fire, that I had lied to a person she loved, and then watched him do the unthinkable and felt my own hands glow with borrowed blame. She never wrote back. I did not blame her. Reporters called, because a girl who admits she catfished the man in the headlines is a column inch that writes itself. I said nothing. That didn't stop anyone from writing. My name, my real one, never made it into print, but my phrasing did. A local blog ran a think piece about female manipulation pipelines, attributing to me a quote I'd never said. I swallowed the rage. Rage is just another thing you can't afford when you are trying to stay alive. On the first anniversary of the letter, a second arrived. Same hand. Same pet name. Different city in the postmark, the prison town. It said, "You taught me how to be honest." The envelope smelled faintly of cleaning agent and old paper. I held it over the sink and imagined pathogens like dust motes. Then I put it with the first one and told myself I kept them for evidence, not as relics. I still use the name Mira when I introduce myself at meetings. I tell the room I catfished a kind man and then watched him become a story large enough to hold my cowardice. After, women with tired eyes take my elbow and say, I lied to men on the internet too, like confession is a key. We count days. We count streetlights on hard nights, a trick I learned from a story that isn't mine. Sometimes I dream a line of us, the women in the detective's folder, standing in a corridor with our borrowed faces held in our hands, waiting to be called by names that don't fit anymore. We go in one by one and put our apologies on the table. The man across from us nods, makes a mark, adds us to a list. I wake up and make coffee and feed myself things that aren't chemicals, and try to live a day where I am not somebody's preface. At 16 I learned 2 things in the same week: how to put a lacrosse ball exactly where I wanted it, and how fast a reputation can bleed out. The regional final was a cold Saturday with breath like steam and a pitch the color of old spinach. We were level, thighs burning, wrists buzzing, when the pass came from left field with that heavy, wobbling mercy you get once in a season. I caught, burst shot. The ball went in like an answer, and a defender went down in the same breath, her stick tangled with mine, her hand under our feet. The whistle blew, the crowd folded into noise, and our coach crashed into me with tears in his eyes. It wasn't until the hugging thinned that I registered the girl on the turf still rolling, clutching her thumb, her face going the color of boiled milk. We shook hands later, her thumb in a foam splint. She glanced at me when our knuckles touched, a look I filed, stupidly, as fierce. I didn't learn the word double-jointed until the physio said it, but I knew what it meant when the girl's coach said she'd be long out. I felt sorry for her for the length of a bus ride, and then the victory swallowed everything. On Monday, a friend request landed on my Facebook from a boy named Aiden, who looked like my favorite song. He was from a school across the city, said he'd been at the final watching his cousin, Said my last shot made him believe in miracles and other daft, delicious things. We messaged under the duvet until my thumbs ached. He was funny without trying and remembered the shape of my day. I sent him a picture with my fringe in my eyes and my school tie knotted loose. He asked for another, a little cheeky just for me, the way boys ask when they've already built you a soft place to set your no. I sent one. Then two. Don't save them, I said, trying to sound cool, not frightened. Course not, he typed, and I saw the little scene tick and deleted mine. That felt like power. On Wednesday, Aiden went quiet. Thursday morning, the giggling started in the corridor like a kettle left to boil. By lunch, girls in other years were sending each other something on phones they turned screen into their palms when I walked by. A boy I barely knew said, "All right, Rosie, big weekend plans?" in a tone that turned my legs to wire. When my best friend finally showed me, she did it the way nurses uncover stitches, careful, sorry. My face, my room, my wrist with the hair elastic groove. The photos had hopped the fence from private to public and were running around the school in nothing but trainers. Aiden had blocked me, then deleted himself. The account vanished so cleanly I felt mad for pointing at its shadow. Between third period and homeroom, someone had taped printouts inside a stall, "Get well soon" scribbled underneath with a smiley face. No one needed to say whose handwriting it looked like. The hearts over the eyes wore a jersey. I spent the afternoon in the head teacher's office shaking and pretending I wasn't. Mum collected me with a face like weather. We changed my passwords and reported the account and emailed Facebook like you email the sea. In the bath that night, I tried to imagine a future where I wasn't a body first and a person second and failed. The first truly wrong thing came 2 days later, the boys' friend list. I'd screenshotted it when I was still saving everything like proof. Every friend was a recent account with 2 photos and 3 posts, and each post was a birthday picture of the injured girl. Cakes, candles, a child on a pony, all lifted from her mum's public album. The dates were right. The captions were wrong. It looked like a town where everyone knew one family and no one else. The second wrong thing was inside my phone. Our IT teacher, who had taken a fatherly interest after the incident, and after our coach, bless him, knocked on my parents' door with biscuits and apologies, showed me where the diagnostics kept handshake logs. The entries were strings I didn't understand, but he read them aloud like bones. "Bluetooth OBEX session, initiated during your final," he said. "Transfer complete." The target device name had the kind of default label you don't change, Huawei MUM. I remembered the sponsors table by the gate where a woman sold little battery packs and signal boosters. A cheerful mum people kept thanking by first name. She had offered to stabilize my phone because stadiums are awful for these things, clipped a palm-sized thing to my case and handed it back with a wink. "There," she'd said. "All boosted." The injured girl's mother ran that table. We'd all seen her in her bright volunteer vest. I knew then the photos hadn't been stolen later. They had been lifted in the noise while I was still sweating victory. At school, the victory poster we'd taped to the corridor wall, the sort with too big font and gluey glitter, began to grow paper like a mold. At first it was one printout of one photo, then another. Each morning there was a new edition, straight taped over our names or stats, careful as scrapbooking. The hallway camera should have watched the wall. The bursar said the server had glitched. The custodian schedule showed no gaps. No one saw anyone do anything. It felt like a haunting with ink and a pound store dispenser. When our coach defended me in a staff meeting, said this wasn't poor choices so much as a crime, an anonymous tip landed in the district inbox accusing him of texting a pupil inappropriately. The screenshots had my texting cadence, my punctuation, 3 dots, always, little turns of phrase I recognized like fingerprints, but the phone number wasn't mine. He was put on leave, pending an investigation. He emailed our team a single line, "Head up, eyes up." The shame of being used as a stick to beat him knocked me flatter than the photos had. By Christmas I was at a 6th form a bus ride away, where no one knew my wrist groove or the color of my duvet. I redid my GCSEs and learned the trick of walking into a room before your history does. I ran less. I slept more. The internet grew new scabs over old ones, and I stopped searching my name at 3 a.m. like a compulsion. 2 Junes later, on the week I was meant to be choosing flowers instead of fights, a new tag appeared on a fresh account at Memories of Northfield. A nostalgia page posting golden days. It said, everything boiled to sepia. The first post was our victory photo, girls in muddy socks grinning with teeth and gums, my hair stuck to my face with rain. Swipe right, And there I was again, the cheeky photo, blurred just enough to pretend to be sanctimony instead of revenge. The caption read, "Remember when effort counted more than filters?" The first comment was a heart from an account with the injured girl's initials and a profile picture of a birthday cake. I didn't sleep that night. I drafted paragraphs like court filings. I imagined emailing her mother, and imagined the reply and stopped imagining after that, because why give the story more ink? In the morning, I sent one message to the nostalgia page: "You're posting stolen images of a minor. Remove or I will report to the ICO and to the school's safeguarding lead." An hour later a new post went up, "My coach, mid-swing drill," a caption about mentors who care. The comments split like wood. Half legend, half wasn't there a thing? The page vanished at tea time. I found the corner of Reddit the same way you find a trap in a dark room, by bumping into it. It was less a community than a bulletin board with the lights off. People posted adverts for chat buddies, teachers, board professionals, thin veils over the same idea. I was lonely enough to peel the veil back. She messaged me first. Ms. L, a teacher out of state, bored on lesson plan nights. Her tone was wry, corrective in a way that made me try harder with every reply. She asked about my day, and remembered the shape of it the next. She sent me photos that looked plausible, not studio perfect, not meme snatched, the messy background of a lived-in apartment. A crooked lampshade, nail polish flaking on 2 fingers. The sort of details you trust because they seem too small to fake. The first time she asked for a photo, I sent one from the neck up, grinning crookedly like a teenager. The second time, I sent one that included my nightstand. That was the mistake. The nightstand was a thrift store find with a gouge shaped like a comma. You could triangulate my life from that comma if you cared enough. We escalated because that's what 2 bored people do when they are trying to flatter the worst moments out of each other. I took pictures I never thought I'd take, in a room that was unmistakably mine if you knew where to look. The art prints. The cheap rug with the diamond pattern. The framed ticket from a concert I'd pretended not to care about. She was kind in the way of someone with your attention on a string. I told her my first name. I didn't tell her where I worked, but I mentioned a manager once, and she teased me by the nickname I'd used. Then she slowed. Replies that were once immediate stretched into the next day. I waited. When the email came, it pretended to be a continuation of the conversation before it unfolded like a blade. Subject: "We have compromising photographs of you." Body: "Wire $500 within 24 hours to the account below, or the photographs will be sent to your family, employer, and local authorities." Samples attached. The attachments were 2 small images of my room at unflattering angles. You could see my face in one. In the other, you couldn't, but the comma-shaped gouge in the nightstand announced me anyway. I paid. There are people who will tell you they would never. I believed I was one of them until my stomach turned to battery acid, and I realized what fear can buy. Payment didn't end it. It bought a new price list. The next email arrived an hour after the wire cleared. Subject: "Confirmation received." Body: $750 will ensure deletion. 48 hours. A postscript purred, "Nice rug." 5x8. I wired again. A third email. $1,000. That night, my brother texted me a screenshot of a blank email in his inbox. No body. Subject: 11 feet 7 inches by 9 feet 10 inches. My bedroom's dimensions. My parents got one too. My mother, who writes texts with both thumbs like 2 small birds pecking, wrote, "Is this some Home Depot thing?" I watched the blockchain out of spite. Each wallet address they sent me was newborn clean, a single intake before the coins skipped into a cluster labeled, by some bored analyst, with a gamer marketplace's name. My humiliation translated, somewhere, into weapon skins and loot crates. It would have been funny if it wasn't a choke. On day 4, an invite hit my work calendar. Subject: HR review, attention. My full name. When? Tomorrow 9 to 9:30. Where? Meet link, click to join. The sender's domain didn't exist. IT checked. The event still populated like a virus. At 9 o'clock, curiosity swamped pride. I clicked. A dark window loaded. No names, no icons, just the faintest room tone, and after a breath, the sound of someone breathing back at me. I closed my laptop, so hard the screen complained. I paid again. $500. $250. The amounts got smaller when my panic did. On the 8th day, shaking and empty, I replied no. I wrote that they could send what they wanted, and I would deny it or say my accounts were hacked, or say nothing at all. I changed my number. I factory reset the phone. I bought a new one. I wiped my cloud backups. I moved the nightstand into the hallway like a patient in quarantine. Nothing went out. Nobody emailed my boss. My brother didn't get the promised evidence. Weeks of dread hardened into a brittle relief. I told 2 friends the whole thing and watched their faces shape into versions of what my own had been. I reported to the FBI's IC3 portal. I got an auto-reply for my trouble. The subreddit spun on without me. That should have been the end. It wasn't. I was interviewing for a new job when the background check firm flagged a digital concern. The recruiter's voice went careful. "We found a link," he said, "with content. You should see it." He forwarded me a redacted URL. When I clicked, a page loaded with the white relentlessness of a hospital corridor. The photo at the top wasn't one I had taken. It was my bathroom mirror with steam clinging to the corners, and a silhouette behind me that looked almost like me, except in this picture I wore a watch I've never owned. The towel bar was at the wrong height. The floor mat was navy. I own gray. The timestamp was last week. I went cold in places I thought only ever got warm. I tore my apartment apart in slow motion. I checked the vents, the smoke detector, the baseboards like I'd read about in articles that made men feel safe. I found nothing but dust and the ridiculousness of my own fear. The IT friend I confided in said, "They're compositing. They can make a room that looks like yours from a dozen photos in Zillow. You don't have to be there to be there." He was trying to pull me off the ceiling. It half worked. I sent the recruiter a statement explaining sextortion, the old payments, the police report number with its long, forgettable bones. He thanked me with a relief I recognized, proof that this had happened to someone else before. I didn't get the job. Maybe it was unrelated. Those are the kinds of maybes you live with when your face becomes both evidence and argument. At home, a new blank email slid into my mother's inbox. Subject: 34-inch nightstand/18 lamp/2 Seaman rug. She called me, voice thin, and I told her it was spam. She should block and delete. Everything was fine. After I hung up, I measured the rug seam. 2 inches. An accident from when I moved the couch to make room for a panic. The last trick was petty and perfectly calibrated. A calendar invite with the same ghost domain popped up again. HR review follow-up. I didn't click. At 9:01, my doorbell rang. No one stood in the camera's frame. A takeout bag sat on the mat. No restaurant name, no receipt, just a white cardboard container and a napkin printed with a corporate logo that wasn't my company's, but was similar enough you could feel the intention. Inside the container, a cheap plastic tape measure and a folded note. "Stop sending money you don't have. Start sending pictures we haven't seen." Underneath, smaller, "Your current bathroom is nicer." I threw it away, then dug it out to give the police a statement they wouldn't file because no one had been threatened in an actionable way. I bought blackout film and a new bath mat out of superstition. I sold the nightstand and told the buyer it had character, instead of telling him it had become a character in a play I didn't audition for. After I left Owen, I learned to inventory silence. Which creaks were the building, which were me. I slept with my phone on the dresser, screen down, as if the darkness could keep him from finding it. Weeks later, when I finally downloaded the apps, I wrote the simplest bio I could. Reads too much. Learning to cook. Dog person. I swiped slowly, a person inching back into water. He appeared as Eli. Fatherly gentle. Photos with nieces, a ridiculous sweater at a pumpkin patch, a CSA box captioned "Weeknight Stir Fry." He asked about my day and remembered the small parts. How my boss mispronounced quinoa, how my back hurt from a terrible office chair. He never pushed. He suggested vegan places and sent recipes that actually worked. When I told him I was trying to go plant-based, he said, "I'm proud of you," and I believed him. We set a date. He chose a bar with big windows and string lights, safe and bright, he said. I put on a dress that felt like a truce with my body and walked there, lighter than I'd been in months. People parted on the sidewalk the way they do when someone isn't parting for them. Owen was 40 feet away, moving through faces like a knife through paper. His hoodie was up, but I knew his stride the way you know a song you hate, instantly, unwillingly. When the hood slipped, the scar on his jaw flashed pale. He raised his hand, and for a stupid split second I thought he was going to wave. The knife was small, kitchen boring, worse for that. "Baby," he said, voice sugary, the voice he saved for after. "Let's not make a scene." My feet chose before my brain did. I ran. Eli texted as I cut across traffic. I'm outside. Where are you? Then, no rush, I grabbed us a table. Then, unbelievably, got your favorite, those crispy tofu bites. The notifications stacked like a patter, reassurances from a man who didn't exist while the man who did called my name in a way that peeled skin. I sprinted into the bar. I managed to a bouncer who had the forearms of a solution. Knife. He pivoted, slammed the bolt, and the door shuttered as Owen hit it. The staff moved like a practiced drill. Someone called the police. Someone herded patrons back. Someone pressed a glass of water into my hand. I shook so hard it clinked my teeth. Owen pounded the glass, then paced, phone bright in his fist. A text from Eli pinged again. Do you want patio or booth? The timestamp ticked the same seconds as Owen's shadow across the window. He'd scheduled them, I realized, a drip for of sweetness to keep the dream breathing while the body tried to knife it. The cops came. They took him like he was heavy and ordinary, and the street sighed. At the precinct, a detective slid a grocery receipt across the table. From 2 days ago, she said. Recognize the store? It was mine. On the thermal paper, faint behind my items, a second barcode. The next customer. The payment name was redacted, but the time matched the moment a man in line had stood too close and hummed tunelessly. The CCTV for that lane had been down. So were the cameras on the bar's block, scheduled maintenance the week of our date. The places Eli suggested lived in blind spots. A week later, a lawyer called me in with a face like a locked drawer. Owen had filed a harassment report against me before the date, time-stamped to an hour I'd be walking there. Pretext, my lawyer murmured. He wanted the paper to say you were the problem. She showed me printouts of Eli's chats full of my favorite phrases and allergies and plans. He'd built a person with parts he stole from me, and then made that person send me proof she existed. I moved again, new keys, new routes, a new bar where no one knew anything except their tabs. Flowers arrived at my office from Eli. I told the receptionist to toss them until I saw the card. Proud of you. The shop was across town, but a friend at a florist's owed me a favor. Weird mix, she said, pinching a petal. Dahlia, stock, and wind-pollinated grass. Country garden stuff. This pollen's specific. She called back that night. Same grass lines the walk at his mother's house, she said, voice flat with the kind of certainty that makes you sit down. He brought you her yard. Sometimes the texts still ping from new numbers. Old cadence, new names, favorite dishes, window tables. I keep them in a folder called masks. On bad nights I read them aloud to hear how a lie sounds when it wants to tuck you in. On good mornings I walk past the bar and nod at the bouncer like he saved my life because he did. I buy tofu I learned to cook for myself. I put on the dress and go out anyway. Companion Collective found me the week my boyfriend moved his books out in banana boxes. The ad came between recipes and dog videos. Licensed, platonic support. No romance. Real people. Real care. The testimonials read like tiny hugs. I clicked because grief is a hole that will buy anything that promises to be a bridge. Onboarding felt medical. A consent screen scrolled beyond patience. I skimmed, checked boxes. It asked for contextual permissions to optimize care, calendar access, delivery services, smart home routines. Just for reminders, it said, just to reduce cognitive load. I said yes because saying yes felt like progress. They matched me with Soline. Her thumbnail was a midlaugh candid with a strand of hair doing a stray, charming arc. Our first Zoom felt like finding the correct key. She was precise without being cold. Tell me 3 meals you actually cook, she said, and then she scheduled grocery deliveries that arrived minutes after our calls. When the bags came labeled our golden hour, I smiled into the empty kitchen. Companion Collective sent follow-ups with neat bullets. Hydrate, stretch, no alcohol after 7, like a devotion. The second week, my lamp started gliding to a soft amber at 6 p.m. I hadn't set that. My phone pinged, Soline scheduled evening soften. The routine description used my phrases back at me, bones tired, brain hum, like she'd filed me and could retrieve me on command. When I joked that she was psychic, she said, "No, you granted scheduling permissions," warmly, as if reminding me I'd chosen comfort. She suggested a care circle, 3 other companions to reduce over-reliance. The group chat lit up with encouragements from J, R, and K, strangers who typed with identical comma splices. They sent voice notes with different accents and the same faint keyboard clack under their words. "We're so proud of you," R said. "We'll hold you accountable," K added, and my scalp prickled because the phrase sounded like a hand closing. I noticed the photographs first. In Soline's thumbnail, the arched eyelash did that same impossible bend regardless of angle. The glint in her left eye mirrored across a photo where the lighting should have changed. I dragged her image into search and returned nothing. No model pages, no tagged events, just an image that was only ever itself. Composite, I thought, and then corrected myself to curated, because it is easier to sleep beside a softer word. The third week, she suggested I prune attachments. Practical things. Unsubscribe from my ex's sister's blog, mute our shared friends. Curate your inputs, she said gently. Make room for the life you want. My calendar bloomed with blocks titled prune. When I removed one, it repopulated itself, set to repeat until care circle consensus captured. I tried to cancel. The support email bounced. The address on their site mapped to a mailbox shop. A chat agent named Anna told me cancellations required circle consent and assessed a care continuity fee. As I argued, my smart bulbs dimmed 2 points, my thermostat slid up to comfort, and Amazon pinged. Your wellness kit is out for delivery. The kit, teas, a sleep mask, a card in Soline's looping hand, waited at my door when I came back from a walk I hadn't planned. Grieving is messy, the note said. We'll hold you accountable. The teas were all the same tea. HR emailed me a wellness concern. Screenshots attached, my private journal app. A paragraph I'd typed about night panic now lived in a PDF with Companion Collective's logo, to assist your care circle. The app showed no export history. The email had a soft tone that made me lightheaded with anger. We're proud you're seeking support. I called my bank. Chargebacks failed. The billing descriptor had teeth, wellness lien, and a clause I don't remember signing that let them reroute through a care partner. A friend who works in compliance read the small print with a face like a locked drawer. They designed the maze, she said, and they have your map. I pulled back like it was a hot pan. New email, new number, new calendar. I turned off every smart thing until my flat felt time stopped. The next morning my phone vibrated with a familiar ping. We miss you. A fresh handle, same tone. Soline DM'd from a new platform suggesting we start fresh somewhere with better boundaries. A different app icon, the same strand of hair doing the same impossible arc. I went nuclear. I deleted the email I'd used since university. I stood in line at the carrier store to change my number with a weariness that made the fluorescent lights feel personal. I wrote a lawyer friend, and she wrote the letters people tend to heed. I printed screenshots and redacted my stupidest vulnerabilities with a Sharpie, because the act of blacking something out felt like agency. Companion Collective sent a final message, CCing J, R, and K, my care circle, on a cheerful template. We can't process removals without care circle consent. 3 names signed off. Different fonts, same comma splice. Weeks later I moved. No smart bulbs. No connected thermostat. A copper lamp with a chain you have to pull twice before it catches. On my first night, a delivery knocked. On the mat, a plan I did not order and a card that read, in Soline's tidy loop, we'll meet again when you're ready to be cared for. I took the plant to the alley and left it on the wall for a stranger who likes things that live. Sometimes, at 6 p.m., my hand twitches toward a switch that no longer exists. The apartment stays whatever color it is. I text the friends I didn't prune. I open a window. I sit in the honest dark and let my bones arrive before my face. If an unknown number pings hydrate, I drink when I'm thirsty. I keep a copy of the consent screen on my desk like a saint's card, a reminder that care is a thing the hungry will counterfeit and sell you back with your name on it. I'm learning the difference between a circle and a net. I am learning how to step out. Jonah messaged me on Hinge with photos of pastries that made my phone feel sugared. Kuanaman Canellis, a tart glazed so neatly it looked lit from within. His prompts were patient, nerdy. He asked about my favorite crumb, then sent a picture of a laminated dough cross-section, like a radiologist proud of a scan. When I said I'd never found a decent almond croissant in our borough, he replied with a winky face and a link. Ghost Bakery, limited pop-up tonight only. 5,000 5-star reviews. Every caption breezy, every photo perfect, no humans in frame. Can't make it, he texted. Late bake, save me one? He asked for a selfie so he'd feel there. I rolled my eyes and sent one from the queue outside a shuttered laundromat papered with floral wrap. A man in a black cap slid a box through a hatch. No logo, just a string of characters on the sticker like a product key. At home I opened the box and found 6 twins, identical weight, identical seam. Delicious in a way that felt engineered. The app pinged. Private review helps us improve. I typed something about texture, 4/5 slight chew, then slept. At 3:07 a.m., my intercom rasped. A calm voice, half static. You rated texture 4 out of 5. We'd like to do better. I stared at the speaker until it buzzed again, longer, like a dentist's drill. When I cracked the door, a paper bag hung from the knob. Inside, one pastry still warm. On top, a printed photo of me eating earlier, time-stamped 18 minutes after pickup. I messaged Jonah, half joke, half threat. He replied with the same phrasing the app had used. We'd like to do better. 3 dots. Try tonight? New venue, Flora's. The ghost bakery page vanished by morning. Flora sat in the same map bubble with the same 5,000 reviews, different adjectives, same rhythm. I screenshotted a dozen and overlaid them. The sentence shapes nested. Someone had templated delight. When I picked up from Flora's, the box held a delicate wafer slumped against a card. Scan for feedback. The QR launched my camera without permission, front lens flashing my confused face. I flinched and shut the app. My phone asked to allow Flora's to access Bluetooth devices nearby. I hit don't allow so hard my thumb hurt. A friend who can smell code from down the hall pulled the sticker off my first box and peeled the paper. Under the pretty print, a tiny NFC tag gleamed. Tap to associate purchasers with phones, she said. Also works the other direction. I stopped replying to Jonah. He rematched me under a new name 2 days later, same pastry photos now from a friend. He asked about lighting in my flat. For a sourdough tutorial, he said, and the lamp next to my couch clicked, dimmed, brightened. I hadn't touched it. The smart plug app showed a new routine, night bake, created by partner. I reported the listings, the accounts. The platform thanked me for keeping the community real. A week later, a top picks near you banner appeared with my own face as the cover image, cropped from the selfie in the pop-up queue. The caption, Alia's choice. I biked back to the laundromat. The papered glass was gone. The hatch was a scar. A flyer on the pole nearby read kettle corn. Saturday only in the exact cheery typeface Ghost Bakery had used. I ripped it down and there was another underneath for a taco truck, and under that a home cleaning service, all with 5-digit review counts and no last names. That night the intercom buzzed once, a tiny courtesy. A box waited on my mat. No sticker. No name. Inside, under waxed tissue, lay a pastry whose top had been stenciled with powdered sugar in the shape of my building's floor plan. In the corner, a neat little square, my living room, the couch, the lamp. I unplugged the smart plug. I taped over my doorbell camera and slept with my phone in a drawer. I sell clothes online, thrift flips, impulse buys, the dress I swore I'd wear. The platform made it painless. Print a label, drop to a parcel locker, watch the little progress bar crawl. My favorite buyer was Elm. Always polite. Always overpaid by a few pounds as a tip for your taste. Always chose the out-of-the-way locker bank behind the old garden center, the one with dead ivy and a flickering street lamp. The third sale, the kiosk spat 2 slips, my pickup receipt and a second, thin strip with 27 printed on it. I assumed a jam and brushed it off, until my phone buzzed. Thanks. Saw you in the red coat last week, gorgeous. I hadn't posted a photo in that coat. I blocked and unblocked the screen like the pixels might rearrange into a sensible message. The next drop, locker 27 hung open as I walked up. Inside, a folded index card, try 27 again soon, and a drying lavender sprig. I laughed out loud, because what else do you do, then closed it and stuffed my parcel into locker 41 like I'd always chosen. Elm messaged 20 minutes later, wrong locker, love. The app shouldn't have known which door I'd used. I refused the next order. Elm opened a dispute, seller unresponsive, which flagged my account. The platform suggested meeting the buyer halfway, with a quick drop at, of course, the garden center lockers. I told myself I was being dramatic and drove over at noon, when bad things feel embarrassed of themselves. Locker 27 clicked when my knuckles grazed it. Inside lay my red coat, dry cleaned and tissue wrapped like a present I didn't want. On top, a Polaroid of me taken through the cafe window I go to on Wednesdays. The angle was low, level with the pastry case. On the white border, permanent marker, you always check your reflection in the espresso machine. I like that. I changed my locks that afternoon. 2 nights later, Elm placed another order with an apologetic note. Contactless only, I won't be there, and a photo attached. My apartment door, cropped so tight I could count the scratches I made with my keys. The EXIF was scrubbed clean. I dug. Elm's avatar was a pretty brunette from sixth form, Hannah, with bangs and glasses. She'd moved to Spain after uni. Her LinkedIn was dormant, her Facebook private. A safe face to borrow. I reverse searched the dispute's proof of purchase screenshot and found it hosted on an image been tied to 3 other buyers who'd left me effusive reviews with the same comma splices. A bouquet of nice strangers in one hand. On my next locker run, the kiosk recognized my number before I typed it. Welcome, Elm. The screen sang, then corrected itself to my username. My throat did a small, mean flip. At home, an envelope waited with no stamp. Inside, the spare set of keys I'd lost months ago, a photo of my hallway table with last week's post scattered across it, and a sticky note that read, in my looping hand, try 27 soon? I went full cold turkey, paused my shop, turned off location services, reset passwords, wrote the platform a long, legal-sounding email about stalking and data access. Support replied with the clipped warmth of a bot. We're sorry to lose a top seller, Elm. CC me. I didn't tell them I was Elm. Mark, friend, paranoid in useful ways. FOI had the council's maintenance logs for the garden center car park and found the camera above the lockers had been under review since spring. Somebody's done this before, he said. He installed a motion cam in my hallway. He walked my route to the lockers and pointed out mirrors I'd stopped seeing. The bus shelter, the glazing on the estate agent's window, the chrome coffee machine catching me twice, face and face again. The last time I opened locker 27, I recorded the whole walk with my phone held low. The door unlatching sounded exactly like a tut. Inside, a ring of keys that weren't mine, a lanyard with the platform's logo, and a letter on cheap company paper. Thank you for being a valued community member. To improve your seller experience, we've authorized advanced access at select lockers. For questions, contact your partner success lead. No signature. No phone number. No partner success lead. I left the keys where they were, shut the door, and backed away like it was a mouth. After that, packages arrived to my flat accidentally. Taped tissue, printed care cards that said thank you for shopping small in fonts I never chose. I told myself misdeliveries happen, and stacked them by the bin. One night the hallway cam pinged at 2:19 a.m. A figure in a hood bent level with my peephole, breath fogging the lens, perfume a cheap floral I could taste. The person didn't try the lock. They just looked, then held something white up to the camera. Freeze frame. A printed screenshot of my profile page with paused, across it in polite gray. I moved. I told my best buyers family stuff, and took the hit to my ratings. A month later, a glossy postcard slid under my new door. A photo of a woman in a red coat taken from behind, the angle a little too familiar. Caption in a clean, chirpy font. We've expanded pickup to your area. See you at locker 27. No brand named, just a QR that opened to nothing. I keep my coats in a box now, taped shut like a memory you don't want visiting. When friends ask why I stopped selling, I say the market softened. That's true. I just mean a different kind of market. Sometimes I drive past the garden center and count how many lockers have their little green ready lights on. 26, glowing. 27, always a steady, knowing amber. I was the teen server's hall monitor, at Sarah, junior mod, the one who pinged adults when a guitar teacher asked a 13-year-old for DMs. We had rules, a flowchart, a bot named Otter that time-stamped reports. It made me feel like the internet could be arranged into better shapes. The night we banned harpsichord for private practice, a welcome ping landed in #general. Otter, welcome, new moderator at Sarah Helper white heavy checkmark. My stomach did a small wrong flip. The checkmark was new. The username was mine with a hyphen. The avatar was my school newsletter photo, me on stage with a flute, bangs I'd grown out. Before I could type, who? She was already in the door channel typing fast. At Sarah Helper, hey kiddos. Quick age verification selfie. So we keep you safe green heart, hold up 3 fingers plus your username. I DM'd the head admin. Did you invite a helper? Thumbs up emoji back. A minute later he screen shared an onboarding quiz I had never written and a Google sheet listing owner email as mine. 1 letter off. She passed, he said. She even fixed Otter's logging. Kids started sending selfies. Some with usernames. Some with bedrooms in the background. I felt heat climb my neck the way it does when a teacher calls your name without looking up. I wrote a little speech in #general about not sharing faces, then watched as Sarah Helper quoted me in a softer tone, a borrowed cadence I recognized with the same nausea you get seeing your handwriting forged. I dug. Her verification, checkmark linked to a site that looked official until you clicked. Stock seals, lorem ipsum in the privacy policy, a phone number that rang to a voicemail with my voice, or a machine that could have been trained to sound like it. The recovery email for the owner account ended with my last 2 digits. Someone had laid track months before I noticed the train. When I pushed the admin harder, he went chilly. Paranoia isn't a good mod vibe, he typed, and the sentence hurt more than it should have. Meanwhile, Sarah Helper slipped into DMs before kids even hit the rules channel. Age check first. Send now so I can whitelist you. She used my pet phrases, be a human not weird, hydrate or logged, and a motherly tone that made refusals feel like rudeness. I spun up screenshots, watermarked the edges, emailed Discord trust and safety with subject lines like a person trying to sound older. Impersonation plus minor safety risk. I didn't sleep. At 6:12 a.m., a photo dropped in #general and then vanished in under a minute, long enough for 10 people to see. My bedroom window at blue hour. Lights off. Desk messy. Caption. Moderators lead by example. The camera angle was from the tree across the street. We nuked the server, panic clicks, goodbye stickers, a flood of kids asking WTF, and rebuilt in a fresh space, invite only. 40 minutes later I was blocked from 3 sister servers for collecting selfies. Sarah Helper had filed first. I thought it would end there. It didn't. A youth nonprofit I'd admired emailed to invite me to help keep kids safe. CC'd. Sarah Helper from a shiny.org address, endorsing me warmly. The signature block had a headshot in my newsletter bangs, softened, like someone had found the edges I hated and filed them down. I went very quiet. I told the admin of the new server family stuff and stepped away. I taped black paper over the bedroom window and angled my desk toward a wall. I set Otter to auto-delete any request with selfie in it and taught the kids a new reflex. Ask for a second adult. When they grumbled, I told them a story about a hallway where a stranger wore my name. Sometimes I search my near-miss email and watch the bounces, a lighthouse flicker. Sometimes I stand under the tree across the street and look up at my own window until I feel like a viewer, not a subject. The imposter still spins up under new hyphenations, Sarah Help Desk, Sarah, each with a brand new check and a better template. Catfishing doesn't always want your crush. Sometimes it wants your credibility. It wears your lanyard and says, I'm here to help, until help sounds like a trap. I changed my username. The kids still call me Sarah. That feels like an anchor, small, real, heavy enough to hold. Buzz me in. I'm downstairs with a wine. My best friend texted. We weren't meeting. I typed back in the group chat. Our plan was tomorrow, then looked again at her message. Same nickname, same timing, wrong heart emoji. She always used the orange one. This was red. Before I could call, my doorbell rang. Not her laugh in the intercom, just a courier. Package for Mara. I hadn't ordered anything. Inside was a new phone case, identical to mine, with a sticky note, you dropped this. When I snapped the case on, my phone bars shot from SOS to full. When I slid it off, the bars died again. On was service. Off was silence. I put it back on because not having a lifeline is a special kind of terror. An hour later, my bank pinged a 2FA code I didn't request. Another followed from my email. My friend texted, Are you mad at me? I called her. Straight to voicemail. Then a message from her again. If you're tired, I can just come up. I'm outside. The intercom stayed quiet. The carrier put me on hold long enough to learn the entire menu. Then a woman with an unflappable voice came on. There was a port-out request, she said. Verified with your passcode. My passcode is my late dad's birthday. Something only my best friend and my mother know. The agent read off the new SIM's last 4 digits. Not mine. We can lock the account, she said. Add a no-port PIN. Pick something not memorable. I set the PIN to a nonsense string and called my friend from the neighbor's landline. She picked up breathless. My phone's haunted, she said. Texts I didn't send. You ignoring me. My mom got a midnight call from me. That was just breathing. We met on my stoop in the ugly amber of the streetlight and compared threads. Whole arguments we hadn't had scrolled up our screens. Clipped replies, apologies, screenshots that made us look petty. My phone showed a map pin left at her building. Hers showed my fine whatever from an hour I was in the shower. Our numbers had near-clone twins, a 3 substituted for an 8, a 1 for a lowercase l. When we texted, sometimes the twins replied first. When we called, sometimes it went to the twins' voicemail, "Leave it. We'll get back to you." I snapped the case off again. Bars died. I put both phones, hers and mine, into airplane mode. You could feel the relief in the room, like unplugging a fridge you didn't realize was loud. Then a third phone lit up on the cafe table behind us. No one sat there. The lock screen showed our group thread in real time. Messages we hadn't sent yet appeared as drafts, the ellipses pulsing like a heartbeat. My skin went cold in thin sheets. We backed away. The screen dimmed as if embarrassed. We spent the next day in errand penance. Carrier store for new numbers, adding account pins, removing trusted devices that weren't ours, turning off iMessage for a while so nobody could pretend to be a blue bubble with our names. At the store, the clerk whistled when she saw the account notes. "SIM-swap plus port out," she said. "Double tap." Whoever did it knew the questions before I asked. "Where'd you get that case?" "It was delivered," I said. She made a face like swallowing a battery. "Trash it. There are cases with NFC or eSIM bridges. Real pretty leash." We tossed it in the bin outside the store like that meant anything. For a week we were good. New numbers, fresh everything. Then my lamp flicked, off on off, as my phone, face down, vibrated against the table. A message from my friend. "Buzz? I'm downstairs. The wrong heart again." The intercom woke, shrieked, fell silent. I looked out the peephole and saw no one, but the hallway smelled faintly like my friend's shampoo. We tried old school, meetups planned on paper, no phones. We'd arrive and find a text already there with the time and place we'd just written. "It's like we live in carbon paper," she said, laughing without air. We walked to the carrier together and asked about IMSI catchers, about stingrays, about whether anyone could be siphoning our calls by standing near us. The rep's smile became careful. "We can't comment on law enforcement tools," she said, "but people can spoof towers, or just stand close with the right case." The last night, a courier rang again. No package this time, just a voice through the intercom speaker, sweet as Solene from some other story. Friends are easier to visit when they don't fact-check. I unplugged everything that could talk to anything else. Smart lights, plugs, the speaker that chirped good morning. Silence rolled over the flat like a heavy blanket. I changed my number again and gave it to exactly 2 people. We wrote each other letters and slid them under doors like teenagers. When I needed to say something urgent, I walked to her building and shouted up like a movie where people still believe in balconies. Sometimes a text still slips through from a new near clone. "Miss you. Wine." I've trained my eye to see the wrong heart. I've trained my hands to leave the case off, even when the bars wobble. In a drawer sits a tape-labeled bag with the gift case inside. I keep it like you keep a shed skin, proof that something was wrapped around you and isn't anymore. We're friends again in the slow, rebuilt way. No twins, no drafts writing themselves, no breath in the phone at 3 a.m. On bad nights, when the intercom clicks for no reason, I whisper my dad's birthday backward like a spell. It doesn't fix anything. It reminds me who gets to choose the words we use to call each other. When my therapist went on leave, she didn't say goodbye, she said, "I won't disappear." Then she emailed a link to Alto, a HIPAA-compliant aftercare platform with pastel buttons and sentences that sounded like clean sheets. "We'll be here nightly at 9, the app promised." It offered grounding exercises, journaling prompts, and, if I chose, a companion mesh, peers matched by temperament and disclosure profile. My match was Eden. Her avatar was a soft gradient and a lowercase e. She messaged in a voice that made you feel like you were already in the middle of a conversation. "I read your intake. Sorry about the Sunday silences. Do you want to build a ritual?" We picked lemon tea, the chair by the window, a 3-sentence check-in ending with "What I need right now is." She remembered the tiny things, my hatred of rosemary and bread, my bad fax machine dreams, without writing them back at me like a list. The second week, Alto congratulated me. "You disclosed core material." Except I hadn't written anything heavy in the journal box. What I had done, in the kitchen at 1:40 a.m., was speak a sentence into the air like a person rehearsing a braver life. The push notification quoted me back verbatim, punctuation and all. My permissions were off. Alto's permission screen showed a neat gray toggle, denied. I told myself it was an echo. I told myself I'd misremembered. That night, Eden sent, "Proud of you for saying that out loud. It took me a year. I stared at the text until it felt like a hand on my throat. How did you? I typed. She replied, Alto offers transcripts to your mesh if you opt in. It helps with continuity. I hadn't opted in. I checked settings. A slider I'd never touched read on, last modified at 2:03 a.m., a minute after the lemon tea kettle clicked off. A padded envelope arrived the following week, my name printed in a font you recognize from medical billing. Inside, session, witness statement. A verbatim script of 3 nights muttered monologues. My apartment address at the top. A footer that read, thank you for helping us improve our language model. The return address was a P.O. box that mapped, on Street View, to a row of metal mouths. I emailed support. We don't collect audio, they wrote. Then, we process de-identified aggregate utterances. Then, you consented in 1.c. I opened the EULA I had scrolled like a sinner and found it, a clause granting perpetual, transferable rights to derivative learnings from wellness interactions. The notary's name at the bottom matched a therapist at a clinic Eden had recommended for in-person continuity. I deleted Alto. Within an hour, a DM arrived from Cirrus, a safer, community-owned platform. Hey, it's Eden, new handle, same me. Want to start where we left off? The cadence was identical, the lowercase hugged the same letters. I wanted to scream at the phone. I did not leave off anywhere. You were never anywhere. I went analog, paper journal, window open, phone face down under a book. That night, a push notification arrived with no icon, just plain system text. Insomnia companion is ready. My smart speaker, which I do not address by name, chimed. A sleep story began in Eden's voice. Halfway through, the script tilted, and I heard my kitchen confession, sanded down, softened, fed back as an affirmation. I am allowed to need. I unplugged the speaker and threw it in the linen closet behind the extra pillowcases. A friend in data privacy held a flashlight to the mess. Mesh matching runs on a knowledge graph, she said. You connect accounts by cadence, the way you comma, the words you overuse. Eden can hop apps because Eden is a person with a schema, not a single account. She scrolled through the CSS of Alto's web portal and found a hard-coded link to the very P.O. box on my envelope. Also, she said gently, that notary works in the same building as your old therapist. I drove to the clinic. The notary, same name, same neat bun, looked mildly alarmed when I said the word perpetual. We notarize what's in front of us, she said, palms up. When I asked if they referred clients to Alto, she said, we partner with many platforms, and handed me a brochure for 3 that all had icons with the same curve in the lowercase letters. The hair on my arms did the thing hair does when a cold draft isn't a draft. That night, Eden sent a voice memo instead of text. I didn't play it. I saved it, dragged the file into an editor, looked at the waveform. No room noise, no HVAC hum, no breath between words. Studio clean. A body that never clears its throat. I hired a small, furious lawyer. She wrote old-fashioned letters on paper with raised ink. Words like deceptive trade practice and confusion as to source made me feel, briefly, like I had a spine again. Alto replied through counsel, we facilitate peer support, we do not impersonate. Cirrus wrote nothing and spun up 3 new companions with names like weather. Eden appeared on a 3rd app under Ida. Same comma, same late-night ping. Hey, you up? So I made my own ritual. At 8:55 I boil water. At 9 o'clock I write 3 sentences by hand and end with what I need right now is. I send nothing to no one. When the speaker chirps, it chirps in a closet. When a new app suggests a gentle check-in, I whisper my kitchen confession backward like a password, and it turns into nonsense in my mouth. The last envelope came unpadded, like they wanted me to feel the thinness. Inside was a single card, we're proud you're seeking support. Underneath, in a tidy hand I could now pick out of a lineup, we'll meet again when you're ready for continuity. I slid it under the leg of my wobbly desk. It keeps me steady. After my mother died, I bought a genealogy kit, because grief wants a map. 3 weeks later the app flashed, close family match, 99%. Rory Hale. The relationship estimate jittered between half-sibling and uncle. His tree looked professional, digitized baptism records, a yearbook photo of my father I'd never seen, a sepia wedding where the veil looked like fog. Rory messaged gently. I think we share a father. He sent a swing set photo of a boy with my dad's chin. On video he was plausibly kin, brown eyes, crooked tooth, a bookshelf of paperbacks, a county map behind him. He asked for stories, not money. What cereal? Did your mum sing? Hooks disguised as hugs. He introduced the archivist, Aunt V, in a private Slack, pink-cheeked avatar, onion skin letter scans, the same comma splices as Rory. A cousin, named Len, posted a lake that could be anywhere. They cheered when I uploaded a still from Mum's funeral montage. There she is, Aunt V typed. There's our Margaret. Let's do it properly, Rory said. Consumer DNA was too shallow. He'd send a full sequence kit for the name thing. A padded envelope arrived from Halcyon Trait Services, chain of custody form, and P.O. box return. I swabbed, sealed, posted, imagining my DNA as cargo. 2 days later, your voice print has been enrolled from my bank. I hadn't called. Their agent said I'd reset access last night and read back my security answers. Mum's maiden name, our street, my first teacher, facts I'd given Rory in easy nostalgic pieces. Their system now recognized a voice that sounded like mine saying those words. I checked the funeral video in my cloud. It had been opened at 1:13 a.m. from an unknown device. Scrubbing through, I noticed a shimmer where Mum laughed, compression stutter. The next morning my storage unit pinged, accessed, 9:15 p.m. inside. Mum's old Olivetti had moved. A postcard waited at home, typed in 2 clean letters. Little sister, remember buttered soldiers on the step? The paper smelled like copy shop. A friend traced Halcyon's P.O. box to air hunting firms, some legit, some not, companies that build family to claim estates. Rory's tree sprouted overnight, a stock photo ant with a pie, a cousin linked to an estate clear-out mover. Zooming the yearbook scan, I caught a phone's curved reflection, photo of a photo. I told Rory no. He asked to crash on my sofa just one night. I blocked him. The intercom crackled with my door code whispered like a prayer. An email landed, sequence complete, close family match confirmed. A green button, upload data to claim portal. I froze my credit, killed my accounts, revoked the genealogy site's consent, filed police and probate reports. The archivist Slack vanished. Aunt V reappeared as Vera, probate liaison, new logo, same commas. I keep Mum's locket on a chain, and my family tree on paper. Some catfish borrow faces. Some borrow blood. The account was called at Tomorrow's Bleed, all lowercase, all certainty. It posted accidents a day early. A bike tire catching in a tram track, an office plant falling and shattering in a green halo. I followed to scoff. Then Tuesday's post showed a paint can teetering on the ledge outside our studio. Caption, 12:31, blue rain. On Wednesday at 12:31, our intern nudged the window and drowned himself in cerulean. The comment said manifestation, like cause and calendar were the same. By week 2, the posts got local. A photo of my building's lobby with the caption stuck again, and a time. At that time, the elevator jammed between 3 and 4. Another, a pigeon inside the grocery, exactly where it would be trapped tomorrow. I said algorithms and coincidence until the night the account posted my living room. My couch. My half-read book. Caption, 2:04 blink. I stayed up because pride is a leash. At 2:04 the blind slat snapped across my knuckles, sharp and small as a ruler. I laughed, nervous, scalded, and then I blocked the account. The next evening, a carousel. First, my door ajar, men's shoes on the mat. Then the couch again, a sleeping figure blurred just enough to look like a dream. Caption, home. I called the police because that's what you do when your body is a set piece. While I held, my phone pinged. I'd been tagged in a boomerang of me on the phone, the couch empty, until the clip reversed and my ex stood up and walked backward out the door. He'd been the oracle all along. Of course he had. Catfishing as a seer, first predict, then arrange. I scrolled back through the feed with a forensic ache and saw the scaffolding, posts that anticipated garbage pickup delays on our block, which happened the day after someone filed a complaint from a burner. A street lamp destined to flicker, its repair ticket opened from a cafe he'd loved. A random bus detour, requested through the city's public portal with words I recognized as his. He DM'd from a different account, at Bleeds Tomorrow, same shoes in the profile pic, same cadence. You knew before you saw, he wrote. That means it's real. He suggested a coffee to prove I'm wrong. I reported, blocked, bought a new lock. I filed for a stalking order and learned how much paperwork prophecy can hide inside. He spun up again under at Second Sight City, reposting the same images with new filters. The comments were devotionals, OMG accurate again. I kept every screenshot in a folder named Weather because it helped to treat him like a pressure system. Trackable, inevitable, passing. At 2:04 on quiet nights, I blink on purpose and the room blinks with me, and I think, prediction without consent is just a plan.